Hello everybody. Today we are continuing what we started last week. This is going to be part 2 of the first bracha of the Shemoneh Esrei. So, a quick reminder of everything we're trying to do here in this class over here. The goal is to learn how to daven in a way that tefillah is relevant. Okay, this is the key word that we're looking for, is relevance. The idea that the ideas have to talk to you, the ideas have to be relatable to. That's the way the Shemoneh Esrei becomes interesting. And the method that we're using is something that I had the merit to develop with my teacher, Rav Shlomo Valba. It's called Tefillah Derech Musar V'Hisayrus, which means that the focus of what we're doing is to, as we're davening, to look for ideas that inspire us, ideas that make us think, the ideas that get us focused. Once again, the big 3 challenges of davening is to remember that we're talking to someone, we're talking to just someone who's a king of kings. Once again, to remind ourselves that the words that we're saying, we have to work hard to make it relevant because it was written by the men of the Great Assembly, which are the same people who wrote the Purim story, they wrote Megillah Esther from that period of history. So we're talking about the ancient rabbis wrote for us a formula, and we have to go deep until we find something that talks to us. Don't look for commentaries that are beautiful and esoteric, but you can't relate to them, so it doesn't help you. It's got to be things that you can relate to and is interesting for you. And the third thing is to constantly remind ourselves that Hashem is the only one that can deliver. So the goal is that when you have stress in your life, you say, okay, I'm going to hold off the stress. I'm going to wait till I daven. I'm going to cast upon God my burden. I'm going to load everything on Him. I'm going to take my 3 steps back, and then, okay, I can chill. So it's great. You save money on therapy. You don't have to see, you have to bother your best friend and everyone else and cry to them. You cry to Hashem. And when you get to the Shemoneh Esrei, so then you do everything you need to do in terms of throwing your burden, throwing the things that bother you. You do it in tefillah, and everything's good. Now, the first bracha of the Shemoneh Esrei is unique and special. The Vilna Gaon says, and I have no idea where he gets this from, that all 19 blessings are somehow embedded in the first bracha. In the first bracha, the halacha is, the law is, that you have to understand every phrase. In contrast to other brachas where we're going to look for themes. In other words, next week we're going to do the second bracha of the Shemoneh Esrei, and we're going to look for a theme. In the first bracha, we're going to go through every phrase and break it down and say, what's this got to do with my life? Comprende? Comprendre? Oui? Okay, it's good? So now, that's what we're going to try and do. Let's go over the first bracha, the first half, very, very briefly, and remind ourselves what we're doing. Hashem sefasei tiftach, afi yagid tehilasecha. That's what we do when we've just taken those 3 steps. Remember, we've said this many, many times, the 3 steps is the most dramatic 3 steps that you will take throughout your day, because you're literally going through station, platform 9 3/4, you're leaving the Muggle world, you're entering into the world of magic, and there you're using the power of your mouth literally to cure cancer, literally to protect the Israeli armed forces, literally to be able to provide you and your loved ones with sustenance, with parnasa. All of this you do with your mouth. You say, Hashem sefasei tiftach. We say, Hashem, open up my mouth, meaning I recognize I'm about to unleash the power of my mouth. And I'm concerned that I've used my mouth for negative things throughout the day. We spoke this out. We had this horrible tendency to abuse our mouths, and then our mouths become what's called contaminated. And you cannot perform an operation with contaminated instruments. So we say, Hashem sefasei tiftach ufi yagid tilasecha. And then we begin the first bracha. So today I want to give you, once again, what I'm sharing with you now is an idea from the Rashba. Who is the Rashba? His name was Rav Shlomo ben Aderes. He was the great student of the Ramban of Nachmanides. He lived in Spain by 800 years ago, and he showed us that the elegance of the first blessing is that the first blessing is broken down into 3 groupings of 3. 3 groupings of 3. Luckily, we don't have a whiteboard behind me. Luckily, today we no longer have these movable whiteboards, so you're going to have to use this using your imagination, or if you have a sitter in front of you, so you can see it in front of you. But I'm going to say it out slowly, and I'm going to go through it step by step. The first grouping is Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The second grouping is Gadol, Gibor, and Norah. And the third grouping, which we want to talk about today, is Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Keineh Hakol, and Zocher Chasdei Abbas. Let's go over this again. The Shemoneh Esrei, the first bracha, has basically breaks down into three sets of three. The first set is what I call how I present my credentials in front of Hashem, which means at the beginning of Shemoneh Esrei, I build a relationship with Hashem. I say, hi Hashem, I'm going to ask you now for my needs, but no, I'm not standing in front of you in a vacuum. I say, Baruch Atah Hashem, you are the source of all blessing, Elokeinu, and you're my God, V'lekeh V'seinu. I have roots, I have beautiful roots. As I told you, it doesn't matter where you come from. I don't care if you tell me you're a convert. You come from roots. You all do. Every single one of you has roots. And those roots are the reason why you're here. No one is in this room just because you met the right person on campus or whatever it is, or that your parents decided to convert or something, story like that. Every single one of you has a deeper mystical reason, and it's going to be very cool, because when Mashiach comes, Eliyahu Navi is going to come and tell you about your little roots over here, and you'll find out exactly which Spaniard had to convert because of the Inquisition, and how it ended up somehow or other, 500 years later, you end up living in South Florida or something like that. You never know how these stories unfold in crazy, crazy, crazy things. I just saw this morning, just want to share this with you. I'm not even sure I want to say this, but it was so awesome that I saw this. I just figured I have to share it with someone, but I'm not going to I'm going to say this too often in public. There was a custom in Europe that when you heard a tragedy, and you told your friends about the tragedy, you always first said the word Shema Yisrael. We don't have this custom anymore. But the Kloisenberger Rebbe said when I was a little kid, people used to say, oh, there's a fire in so-and-so's house. They say, Shema Yisrael. There's a fire in the Goldstein's house. Or you hear somebody's going through a sickness, they would say, Shema Yisrael. So-and-so has a sickness. So they always began with these words, Shema Yisrael. So the Kloisenberger Rebbe was trying to investigate where did this minhag come from, that Shema Yisrael was always said before something terrible happened. Now, the reason why I don't like telling this over, because my whole teaching style is to always be positive. When I want you to think of Shema Yisrael, I want you to think of whatever, your mother putting you to bed, or you putting your kids to bed, and you say the Shema with them, and it has this happy, positive idea. But we cannot get away from the fact that the Shema Yisrael is associated with martyrdom. So the Kloisenberger Rebbe brings down something he heard from his father, who heard it from his father. It goes back generations, that in Spain, and I think it was more in Portugal, where you had the people who believed in Torah but were acting out as if they were Christians, and they knew that if they were caught, they would be sentenced to death by burning. So if you think this is an exaggeration, you can go today to the synagogue in Amsterdam, to the Esnoga, the Spanish-Portuguese synagogue. Look at their siddur, their own siddur. It's an ancient siddur. It's hundreds of years old. And in the back, it says, prayer to say before your own personal auto de fe, before they burn you alive. This is pretty nasty. I know you guys have just had lunch, and you really don't want to hear this stuff. But it's scary. This is what the Jewish people went through. So the Kloisenberger Rebbe brings down that the custom in Spain and in Portugal, that when children were very little, they used to, before they said the Shema, they used to make the child put the finger near a candle to feel the heat. And as the child got older, they used to increase the heat levels so that the child would always know that it's okay if you're burned to death. So they've already, so to speak, got used to it. They got used to the idea of saying the Shema, suffering from the heat of fire. And this is horrible. This is a horrible, horrible, horrible story. But it really, really shows us what the Jewish people have been through, and how much, once upon a time, a Jew was prepared to give up his life, and it was associated with the Shema Yisrael. Be that as it may, coming full circle, I just tangented because I saw this morning. Baruch Hashem Elokeinu. We don't stand in front of God out of roots. It's Elokeinu V'lekei Avseinu. We have parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, and they all lived for you. And unfortunately, some of them had to die for you. And that's where we come from. We come from roots. We all do. I don't want to talk about this anymore because I believe in always stressing the beauty of our religion. Baruch Hashem, the 99% that's exciting and positive and uplifting and inspiring so that we can focus on that Shema Yisrael. But be that as it may, we say, Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. We all come from the three primary roots. Avram, which was Chesed, Yitzchak, which was Gvura, and Yaakov, which we explained is Neira, is awesome, is the ability to toggle, to be able to balance the Chesed and Gvura in a seamless, harmless, perfect way, which we called the world of Emes, or the world of Tiferes, which is Splendor, which is the beauty of how opposites can actually add together. By the way, just the word splendor, why is splendor, Tiferes, why is that opposites? So those of you who like art, I said those of you that like art, and you walked in, okay? So there we go, they understand art, or even music is the same thing. Music is the same thing. The most beautiful music, and for sure the most beautiful art, is when you have extreme opposites that reconcile. So next time you go on a hike, you go to the north. If you can see mountains and valleys with the same eyes, so it's not normal. It's like crazy. You see beautiful mountains, it's amazing. You see a deep valley, that's incredible. But if you see a mountain and a valley with the same look, so then you start hyperventilating. It's like too much. The same thing with music. Shane, you're gonna have to give us a demonstration when I'm not here. But if you take a harmony where the harmonies are very different, not like an obvious, 1/3 up type of harmony, but like the Scarborough Fair, some of you may know that. You take two songs and you sing them simultaneously. It's like, whoa, okay? That's Tiferes. You take things that shouldn't reconcile and they somehow reconcile. So that adds a whole level to their beauty. That was Yaakov Avinu. Okay, so now, then we say, Gadol, Gibar, and Neira. What's Gadol, Gibar, and Neira? Gadol, Gibar, and Neira is how we see Hashem. So Hashem sees us as the children of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We see Him as Gadol, as Gibar, and as Neira. Those are the three things, so to speak, how we understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's very important, like we said last week, to remember, you can never fully grasp who Hashem is. So that's why whenever we say Gadol, Gibar, and Neira, we always immediately say the two words Kel Elyon. Kel Elyon means warning, like government warning. Smoking is bad for your health, okay? Government warning. Describing Hashem is bad for your spiritual health because you're limiting Him. Hashem is infinite. Hashem is beyond any comprehension. So therefore we say He's Kel Elyon, but we see Him as Gadol. Gadol is His midah of Chesed. So every person in this room, when you first arrived in Israel, so hopefully everything was Chesed. Everything was beautiful. Always like when the day that you arrived, the sun is always shining, and it was friendly, and the Bay is such a great place, and everything like that. And then you have, when that comes next, is that Gibar. So Gibar is the world that you can't necessarily understand. So Hashem's Gvura could be harsh. It could be harsh. So sometimes, you guys, after you spend a week in Neve, then suddenly you get your first sickness, and then suddenly you realize that the food's not your mama's food, and then you have your first taxi driver experience, and then that's it, and suddenly like, beam me up, Scotty, what am I doing here? And then eventually you get to Neira. Eventually you realize how both the Chesed and the Gvura has built you in a way that's incredible. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Neira. His awesomeness is that He has this ability to toggle the two seamlessly. They both work with Him. Hashem is extreme Ava, and Hashem is extreme Yira, but the real Yira is what we call Yiras Haremus, the awesomeness, the height of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Neira is how they come together. So that is last week's class. I'm sorry it took so long. So again, you got Gadol, Gibar, Neira. Then you have Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And now comes the second half of the blessing. The second half of the blessing corresponds, phrase by phrase, to the first half. So if you have a look in your siddur, some of you I see are smart, you have your siddurim open, and you'll see the words, Goimel Chasadim Tovim. That corresponds to Hashem's midah of Gadol. Kaine Hakol, that's His midah of Gvura. And then Zocher, Chaste, Avos, Amevi, Goel, Livnei V'neim, that corresponds to Neira. Now, How does this work? It works the following way. This last trilogy is how the two parts come together. In other words, I stand in front of Hashem, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Hashem, so to speak, stands in front of us, Gadol, Gil, V'Naira. How do we experience the relationship? How do the two come together? That's what we're looking for. How do we experience Hashem? How do we see Him in our lives? So here, the phrases, Geimel Chasarim Tovim, Kaineh Hakol, Zocher Chasei Avos, Umevi Gal Evnei V'neim, become so incredibly important and so beautiful. I just want you to know, I have another 20 minutes with you guys now, but in general, the first bracha of the Shemoneh Esrei has everything. What do I mean it has everything? If I wanted to give you a course, which I can do, some of you know, in the fundamentals of Judaism, I want to teach you Derech Hashem of Lutzato, of Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato, the Ramchal. All of the fundamentals of Judaism. I can show you everything in the first bracha of the Shemoneh Esrei. Everything that's important to us, everything that's meaningful in our lives, all the great themes of Judaism can be found in the first bracha. And for sure, if you throw in the second and the third, it's for sure that there it's much more blunt. They talk about death and afterlife and the geula and all these different things. But the first bracha has secretly embedded in it all the major themes. So let's see what we can do over here. Geimel Chasadim Tovim. The very first thing is that we experience Hashem through His chesed. It's called Geimel Chasadim Tovim. Ladies, what does it mean, Gomel Chasadim? The word Gomel literally means to pay. Gemilas Chasadim literally means to pay chesed. We always talk about that the world stands for three things. Torah, right, prayer, and Gemilas Chasadim, paying chesed. What does it mean to pay chesed? How do you pay chesed? Morgan, how do you pay chesed? What does it mean to pay chesed? Let me ask you another question. This you all know the answer to. What's the highest form of chesed? What's the highest form of charity?
With the dead.
What?
With the dead. No?
With the dead, okay.
I thought it was when you do it unknown.
When you do it unknown. Okay, that's for all correct. There's all called chesed shel emes. There's always the what?
L'chvot Hashem, something unknown and l'chvot Hashem.
Right, but, okay, let me set you up for the answer. I'm going to ask you a question about chesed. Every act of chesed is self-contradictory. Every chesed, on a deeper level, is anti-chesed. Okay, welcome to Judaism. We're going to force you to think out of your little boxes. Every charity organization is doing the opposite of charity. Why?
Because they benefit from it.
That's also true. Maybe not. Maybe they're altruistic. Maybe they're really altruistic. Maybe, people go to some earthquake zone and they help the poor, starving natives, and they do it because they love people and they don't care about getting anything back in return. Let's pretend. It's still anti-chesed.
Is the person helping themselves?
The person what?
But in a way, they're not helping themselves.
Okay, you're almost the way there. That's it.
It's what they feel, like they feel good when they give. It's because of them.
But the person who, okay, now we're getting that. There's a problem with receiving something. When you give, you're imitating God. Right? Hashem's the great giver, correct? Hashem is the great giver. When you give, when a mother gives to a child, so that's something, the beauty of motherhood is that every morning you say the blessing, Shasani Kirtsono, you made me like you, because you're the unconditional giver and I'm the unconditional giver. What I did to my children and my family and the people around me is what you do to the whole world. That's called that's called Asani Kirtsono. You made me like you, the giver, more giving and more giving. So the giver is imitating Hashem. The recipient is doing the opposite. Whenever you make a person to a recipient, you are, in a sense, removing his tzelem Elokim. You're removing his image of God. Everyone knows that it feels much better to give than to take. Even if you're a spoilt brat. I'm thinking about daddy buys you jewelry. So the first time you get jewelry, you say thank you, you love it. Second time, but after a while, it doesn't feel good. It feels good wearing it, but you know what I mean? When you become a recipient and people are giving you and giving you and giving, it does not feel good. No one wants to be a taker, everyone wants to be a giver. This is something that the secular world is in denial about. But they all know it's true. The secular world understands this deep down. They know that being spoiled and being the center of attention is nowhere near as good. That the word goodness is when you're the giver, when you're the enabler, when you're the provider. It's like I always say, my wife and I, Baruch Hashem, thank God, we've experienced two things. We've experienced getting married, and we've experienced making the marriages of our kids. They were both very good, but where did we feel goodness in a deeper sense? When we were the parents, because sunrise, sunset, and you see a child that you put and gave and gave and gave, and you see the successes, it's a tremendous, tremendous feeling. But the recipient, it's not that way. You don't want to be the center of attention. A person who has an image of God, you feel it's not natural. No one wants to be receiving. Everyone wants to give a ride, not to take a ride. Think about it. That's how you feel. You could be you're in denial, but that's how you feel deep down. So chesed has come with a problem. When you say goimel chesed, it's a genius. That you give chesed so the recipient feels like they have earned it. That's the greatest form of chesed. It's basically a twist on what you learned as kids. How does the saying go? Give a person a fish, and you feed him for a day. Turn him into a fisherman, and you feed him for life. And basically, you empower someone to have his own image of God. That's the highest form of chesed. The highest form of chesed is to turn your godliness into someone else's. You give them the ability to become a giver. Then you've really given them true chesed. I think I told you the story 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, I think I came into this room. I was on a high. Does this make sense, this story? It was just after the shloshim of my Rabbi, and I got a ride from a friend, and it was a very nice, fancy car, and I was sitting in the front with the driver, and my friend said, "This is my driver." His driver was this Hasidic guy. He was pretty well dressed and everything put together. And at some point, I asked the driver, I says, "Can I have your card? Sometimes I may need a driver." And he kind of laughed at me. And I felt a moment of awkwardness. But afterwards, when I was dropped off, my friend told me that this Hasidic guy was exactly like the story of My Fair Lady. He says, about 10 years ago, this Hasidic guy knocked on my door. He asked for money to be able to pay his bills. And he told me his father had 10 kids, and after the 7th kid, he told the last 3, "I can no longer take care of you, you're on your own." So he said, "I take care of myself." Not only that, he had a stutter, so he couldn't finish his sentences, and he also had this tremendous sadness in his eyes. So my friend, he's not a millionaire, but he has, Baruch Hashem, a little bit of means. He said, "You know what? I'm going to make my project. I'm going to give you everything you ever need. From now onwards, you can do what you want with your life, but money's not going to be in your head. Money's not going to be in your head." So it's a crazy thing. It was a crazy thing. He started building himself up. First, he went back to yeshiva, and he started learning. He learned for a few years. Then afterwards, he got involved in business. The bottom line is, his stutter went. The way he walked, he now walks straight up. He's got this sort of glow in his face. And what was so cute is that he's now today, there's a driver, as we were leaving, says, "Would you like to have lunch in the Knesset?" So he goes, "Yeah, that sounds cool." He calls up and says, "Chaim Yankel," he says, "I'm bringing my friends over, give them VIP treatment." I said, "What's going on?" He said, "This guy is now," I don't want to see too much details because then you're going to start to figure out maybe who he is. But he's not really a driver. This guy runs this incredible chesed organization, and everyone needs him, and he's like a big shot. It's just that he never forgets his roots, the one that built him in the first place. So I'm dying to tell you who these people, the names of the people involved. It's such a beautiful story. I was so moved. And what can I tell you? He says, "But this man who made me, he's always going to be my Rebbe." That's what he said. This guy who's self-made, he's now wealthy and successful in every single possible way. Goimel chasadim. Hashem gives us chesed in a way that we feel that we've earned it. Every person in this room just assumes that we can breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Everyone just assumes that the scrumptious lunch that Neve gave us is going through our system, and obviously the proteins will go to the brain, and the carbs go to our hips, and everything just works out beautifully, and just like seamlessly, everything works out perfectly. Everyone just assumes that you can see me and you can hear me and you can understand me. And as we're talking, you look around any given moment, there are people whose eyelashes are just going up and down because every few seconds you need to water your eyes. So it's an amazing thing. You have this thing called eyelids. And all these things we just assume are coming our way. Not only that, we assume that we're going to have a great marriage, we're going to have a beautiful life because we're good people. We're the Neve girls. We're the ones that have earned it. And I'll prove it to you because when a little thing goes wrong, suddenly you're mad at Hashem. Hello, that's not the game. You know what I mean? Like Hashem gives and gives and gives and gives. One thing goes wrong, you get all upset with him. Which means until then you just assume that it's coming your way. That's Gomukhasana. In Tefillah we recognize that you give us chesed in a way that we feel is coming to us. What does Gomukhasana Tovim mean? It means good Gomukhasana. What's Gomukhasana that's bad? How can chesed ever be bad?
It's too much.
Too much? It's a good answer. It's a great answer.
When you do it in order to receive something.
Yeah, it's also a good answer. There's many answers that you can give, but I'll tell you the one I like. Everything you're saying is correct, but I'll tell you the answer I like. A lot of chesed has a flip side. So let's talk amongst ourselves in an honest way. We all like food, right? Admit it, okay? I am going to do a public confessional. I love chocolate. I love chocolate. This is the way it is. I'm a chocoholic. What can I tell you? I love chocolate, and I do. It's like embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's almost like a feminine trait. What can I tell you? It's like a thing. So what do you do? If chocolate's great, and then what? And then what? There's a price. Oh, is there a price? Is there a price you pay? Okay, how much time can you spend on a silly treadmill? You know what I mean? Like, it's annoying, but that's the way it goes. And there's no other way. Money's good. Everyone likes money. Admit it. We love money. Everyone can, you know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't mind if somebody come at you and says, here's $10,000, do whatever you want. We'd be okay with that. Maybe $1 million, maybe $10 million. But you know what? If you're incredibly, incredibly wealthy, so suddenly you realize that money has a flip side. Not everything is perfect in life. There we go. If the stock market drops by 3% tonight, so it could be that Bill Gates is going to lose like $3 billion. Menachem Nissel sleeps fine. He doesn't have any stocks or shares. He doesn't even know how to go about it. I work for Neve, for goodness sake. So what do you want from me? So we sleep well. Obviously, secretly, we all know we don't sleep well because whenever the stock market crashes, 3 years later, they're firing Menachem. But the point is, forget that. That was just an event. Anyhow, but the point is that the point I'm trying to make is everything has a flip side to it. It's an interesting thing. If you have a look here, this is the Ten Commandments look like this, right? Basically, here. Oh, you know what? Give that to me for a moment. Since it's Adar. This is Moshe Rabbeinu and his 2 tablets. Get it? Tablets. It's terrible. Okay, so the luchos were written on both sides. So you have 5 over here, 5 in here. You flip them around, and you can see right through. You have on the back. What a great magical trick. Who needs that? Thank you for your tablet. Who needs this little magical trick that you have the 5, you can see them on both sides. So the answer is, there's a lot of deep answers based on Kabbalistic ideas, which I'm not going to share with you now. But on a simplistic level, is to teach you that Torah has no flip side. Meaning there's no small print. There's no here's the catch. On the contrary, with Torah, the deeper you go, and with Hashem, the deeper you go, the more perfect it is. If you're an American politician, as I'm sure you all know, so you have to instantly make everyone happy. The consequences in the long term, you don't really care about. The next person can clean up the mess up. With Hashem, it's the opposite. Hashem very often gives us things that are bitter pills, but when you go a little deeper, you realize they're good. And you go even deeper still, you realize they're perfect. So that's it. The same with our tzaddikim. Sometimes you see a tzaddik, you don't understand what he's doing. You go a little deeper, you understand. You go a little deeper still, and you realize that his actions are perfect. That's Geimel Chasadim Toivim. We live in a world that's in there for instant feel-good. Everything should be perfect right now. And that's the way it goes. So, You see, I just saw an advertisement this morning for a product. Once you start, you cannot end. That's what it is. Somebody taught me a phrase when I was in America. It's called binge watching. Binge watching. It's the ability to take Netflix and take 12 series of things of Friends and to watch them one after the other. So secretly, there are people here that can do it. You know what I mean? Sometimes not so secretly. But I said, you know what I mean? You can spend a whole day. So that's great. Maybe the first program was good, but by the time you finish, that's it. You want to strangle someone. Gomukhasana with Hashem, His goodness. The deeper you go, the better it is. So all of this we say in 3 simple words. Hashem, your chesed is goimel and it's toiv. It's all perfect. What about Konei Hakol? So I'm looking at the clock over here. There's a lot of things to say about Konei Hakol. Hashem controls everything. His gevura means He owns everything. Everything is His. So now, stop and think for a moment. I can go many different directions with Konei Hakol. But I want to share with you one idea that I think, as I'm always looking for, something you can relate to. Look at me, Hashem is everywhere. Hashem is always watching you. Or as the song goes, every move you make, every breath you take, He'll be watching you. So that's it. So first of all, today you can't sing that anymore. It's way too creepy, right? But the point is, so what do you mean Hashem is everywhere? Hashem is everywhere. It's a scary thing. So I want to show you something, a nice thought to think about with Konei Hakol. A lot of people from circles, they call it Hamish. Hamish is a Yiddish word. You know what I mean? The ones that they know how to walk the walk, talk the talk, and shuckle the shuckle. They're very firm people. But when they go on vacation, then they lower their standards. As my chavrusa told me in the name of his friend, I shouldn't really be saying this in front of ladies, but his friend said, when I go on vacation, I'm not makpid on Chalav Yisrael, I'm not makpid on Pas Yisrael, and I'm not makpid on Bas Yisrael. So that's it's a terrible, terrible joke. But the point is that, that's extreme. It's just a joke. Just relax. It's a joke, okay? But the point is that people go on les vacances, okay? So they go down to the south of France, and there they have a different set of rules. Those of you, I see there's a lot of girls here, ladies, who don't know what goes on in the Hamish world. Go to Miami once, okay? And find out those places where they're speaking Yiddish. And you'll see a little bit, 2 standards. So what's going on? Where does this come from? Where does it come from? So I want to tell you a little secret. It's a terrible Yetzer Hara that thinks as if to say Hashem is more between Avenue J and K and Flatbush than He is, when you're walking down on the boardwalk in Miami. It doesn't work that way. Hashem is everywhere. But now I don't like to speak negatively, although I sometimes slip. I like to think positively. I am giving every person here a challenge. As you probably know, I'm not embarrassed to say I love traveling. It happens to be I like to travel, but I also believe I like to travel because I honestly believe that the best teacher is not the classroom, the best teacher is the great outdoors. But you have to know how to learn the outdoors. In other words, you can't just go outside, you got to learn how to experience things. So for example, you're in Miami, so what do? You're going to go with your husband, it's fast forward a couple of years, you're married with kids, you want to go on vacation, you go to Miami. So you don't have to say, okay, I'm going to compromise in my stance, and my husband doesn't have to go to Minyan, doesn't have to learn. No, you don't have to compromise in any of these things. But then you don't stop there. You ask yourself, how can I turn my vacation into an opportunity to find God from a different angle? That's Konei Hakol. In other words, Hashem has got surprises and beauty and things to observe everywhere you go. So if you're ever stuck in Europe, do me a favor and call me up, and I'll tell you, most cases, not always, but most cases, how to find inspiration in almost every part of the European continent. There's always something there, some Jewish history, or something you can learn from the architecture or the music, something that can inspire you. You have to know how to do it. You just have to know to step back and say, I don't have to visit a city the way the secular world, the non-religious world visits a city. I can visit a city with the lenses of Konei Hakol. I want to find Hashem from a different angle. So you can admire natural beauty. You can even admire the great works of man and say, who gave man the ability to make such beautiful buildings and such beautiful bridges and stuff like that. Or when I go to Miami and I'm a rabbi and it's come on, there's very little you can do. I'm not going to just like go to the hip hop Latino Cuban culture. It's not going to happen to me, Melissa. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like maybe 25 years ago. But now I go and I go to the Gatorades. No. Everglades. I go to Everglades. I find myself an alligator, and I sit there. Literally, I could do this for a solid hour. I'll just focus on one alligator, and it's just me and it. I don't know if it's a male or a female, and until I feel like a sort of Ruach HaKodesh kind of a feeling. You have to, you can do it. You can do it. You just get this. You log into nature and turn to something spiritual. Everywhere you go in Hashem's awesome world, you have surprises. Konak Kol means that the big world out there, it's only a threat if you are stupid about it. If you're smart about it, it can be the most incredible experience. And now I'm looking at the clock. I'm not going to be able to finish this bracha, but I want to do the third phrase. Zocher chasdei avos, omevi goel livnei v'nehem, leman shemo bi'ahava. Hashem remembers the great deeds of the early generations, but he brings the geula to livnei v'nehem, to the children of the children. Who's that? That's us. Every person in this room has a right to assume that you're going to see Mashiach come. Why not? Simone, why not? Why shouldn't you be there to greet him? You should be there. The only thing is that at the same time you can ask the following question: why do we have this tremendous honor of seeing Mashiach and not previous generations? What do we have that they don't have? So first of all, let me quickly remind you over here. This phrase over here, this section over here, corresponds to Yaakov. This corresponds to Neira. This is what I call the God of history. The God of history is the God where in one decade he can bring the Holocaust and then give us our homeland back that we can daven in Yerushalayim. So this can all happen in the same decade. Hashem can toggle different opposites of the same thing. For some reason, Mashiach's going to come to us. So I know there are girls in this room that secretly, maybe not so secretly, are thinking to themselves, why would Mashiach come for me? Why would Mashiach come for me? I'm not good enough for Mashiach to come. So, sometimes girls give me confessionals, and boys, and grown-ups, confessionals, and they say, I'm a bad person, and they tell me what they did, and then I tell them a little secret. I want you to know something. Mashiach has to come for someone, right? He can't come for a vacuum. If you think that there are better people out there, you're all wrong. It doesn't get better than people like you that listen to a middle-aged rabbi during a lunchtime class. Think about it. You are the creme de la creme. You are the ones that could be anywhere. You could be living anywhere and going anywhere, but you live in Yerushalayim, you're studying in the seminary, and you are spending your lunchtime breaks learning Torah. You guys are amazing. So you're thinking, but Rabbi Nissel, if only you knew that I'm struggling with this bad midah, and I did this bad thing, and I'm fighting with my parents, and so on, and you tell me all these things. It says, Mashiach's coming for you. Mashiach's coming for you. You are the best that we have. Yup, it's that pathetic. It doesn't get better than the people in this room. I'm telling you now. I'm saying, you think that, you see these Beis Yaakov girls, they have their challenges as well. Hashem's coming for them as well, but he's coming for you people as well. I'm telling you this. So now, how can it be? You open up, you read stories, the previous generations, and their tmimus, and their simplicity, and their love of Hashem, and how they used to pray and everything. So I want to finish off with the following story. And I want you to remember this. It's very empowering. It's a very empowering story. By the way, I made this story up. It's not like it's a famous story. It's my own thought. Let's say one day, I don't know if you remember from the olden days of the thing called a television. No, you've forgotten. Okay, it's good. But let's just imagine, you see the screen, and then you have what's called, we call it a quetcher, whatever you call it, a remote. Okay, and you hit it randomly, and you don't realize you put on a sports station, and into the stadium, the man comes running in, and he looks disgustingly sweaty, and he's going slowly around the stadium with his hands up. And everyone's standing up for him and cheering. And you're looking at this person, first of all, you want to throw him an antiperspirant, to take a shower, man. Like, he looks disgusting. And secondly, he's not running that particularly fast. Din, 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 din. Chiki, 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 din, 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 din. And you're looking at din, 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 din. You can run faster than that. Why did you? And then he crosses the finishing line and he gets a gold medal. What is happening? Hello? The answer is, you are watching the last few minutes of a marathon race. This person entering the stadium, the hard work has already happened. He has run past these Ethiopians and Kenyans and all these people, and he did this in the last 2.5 hours. He did this incredible feats of athleticism. All that's left for him to do now is cross the finishing line. He's won. He's the winner. Ladies, that's us. All we have to do is cross the finishing line. The hard work was done in the earlier generations. So let me explain that very, very briefly. Generations, the avos are the head, the other generations is the body. We are the soles of our feet. It's called ikvasa de Mashiach. We're the lowest generation, we're the bottom of the feet. That's our, what's called a very, very thick and unspiritual generation. Rabbi Elimelech from Lezhensk said none of the souls are going to come back who were souls, the students of the Baal Shem Tov, were too refined, too pure to be able to come back as a reincarnation in our generation because it's such a lowly generation. But we have something, and that is that despite the fact that we're living in such a lowly generation, despite the fact, as you heard from my rant last week, I just came back from America, okay, and you hear like the way people talk and the way people dress and the whole mindset over here. I just saw the study that the average American woman takes 3 times as much medicine for anxiety and stress than the average American male. I don't know, I thought you're supposed to be liberated. Well, I'm not being tongue-in-cheek, but I'm just saying to you, there's something wrong going on. It's not a normal situation. There's something wrong going on over here. We can talk about it, but it's really, I'm not interested in talking about social analysis. I'm talking about us. We're pulling ourselves out of this whole thing. And what we have to do is just one thing and one thing only. And that is when you guys build your Shabbos table, which you all will, if Sarah Imenu, schlepping her husband Abraham, would walk in, they would feel at home. That's all we're asking for. We're asking for that you should have that residual Jewish pride and Jewish practice. That's it, that they can identify. They know this is it. This is what we had in mind. It may not be perfect. It probably won't be perfect, but don't worry about it. It's a Hamish home. It's a home. It's a Jewish home. You feel Jewish. You care. You're passionate. So with all your imperfections, you get to cross the finishing line. Our generation is, despite the fact that we're jogging in mud, but we get to cross the finishing line. That's our job, is to get past. That's called Zeicha Chaseo, Mevi Gal Livnei V'neihem. And then we finish up with L'man Shemo B'Ahava. But that already I'm going to have to just talk about next week. And Melech Ozim Shemoneh we'll talk about next week. I apologize, especially for those listening. It's frustrating not to get the end of the blessing, but we've always got to leave something for next week as well. Thank you so much for listening. To be continued.